All right. Nohmai Hedemai, Tenekoto, Tenekoto, Tenekoto Katoa, Na mihi nui ki kato katoa. Warm greetings to everyone who is joining us here in New Zealand, but also from across the globe. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the lecture of Emilia Weckman as part of the Thinkers and Doers lecture series. For those who don't know me, my name is Bruno Marquez, and I'm the Program Director for Landscape Architecture at Te Rangewaka Victoria University of Wellington. So this lecture series, as probably most of you know by now, aims at bringing together practitioners, scholars, and students, and a wider community of landscape architects and other affiliated built environment disciplines to share ideas and to hear the latest innovations in the field. This lecture series is an initiative between the New Zealand Institute of Landscape Architects and Victoria University of Wellington. Our 14th speaker, Emilia Weckman, is a landscape architect and a lecturer at Aalto University, Finland. She has practiced as a landscape architect for more than 15 years, mostly as an entrepreneur and consultant through her own practice. Her experience as a designer includes a range of different planning scales, from citywide commissions to more intimate and detailed construction projects. She's also an active party in developing the profession both in Finland and internationally. She has been the past president of MARK, the Finnish Association of Landscape Architects, and she's also been part of the board for over 10 years. She's also an active member of VWL, the Finnish Landscape Industries Association, an umbrella organization representing the green sector associations. And she's also the immediate past vice president for education for the European region of the International Federation of Landscape Architects. So the title of this lecture is Sustainable Landscape Construction, an Operating Model for Landscape Industries. And this lecture focuses on the goals for sustainable development, particularly ecological sustainability and its importance to landscape construction as a way to mitigate the damages caused in natural processes and ecosystem services. So this lecture explores the operating model associated with environmental construction and by following sustainable development goals. It explores that through different themes: water conditions, soil and vegetation, raw materials and products, energy saving, air quality and environmental protection, as well as health and well-being. Different stages of project implementation will be addressed by logging the operating principles of order, design, construction, and maintenance. The lecture also introduces the Sustainable Landscape Construction Model, KESY, you need to correct that later on, presented in 2015 by the Finnish Association of Landscape Industries, which considers what the objectives are for sustainable development in the green sector and how they can be achieved. So just very briefly, some housekeeping rules. Don't forget that Emilia will be sharing her screen, so try to keep this window open so you can see her slides. I also kindly ask you to remain muted throughout the talk. And at the end, there will be plenty of time for questions. You can either ask those verbally or just by writing them on a chat box. Without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Emilia all the way from Helsinki, Finland.
Yes, thank you, Bruno. Hello, everybody. I think I will just start by sharing my screen here. Okay, I guess you can see it. I'm just
all working.
Okay, no, I cannot. Okay, it's going on. Yeah. Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation to talk. As Bruno told you, I'm a landscape architect, and Aalto University is my main work, but I do have my own practice, and I kind of I think it's very important when you're teaching that you also have a very close connection to the own design work, which I do here in Finland. As said, the topic of this presentation, you can see here, Bruno gave a short introduction. I don't have to repeat that, so I will just go further. So we'll start with the basics, and kind of to explain, I guess, well, most of you might be landscape architects or students of the field, or otherwise familiar with the topic in a certain point. I will just say that I have some texts here also in Finnish, because a couple of weeks ago I gave this talk in Estonia. So because they're familiar with the Finnish language, so you can see there's two languages on some of the slides. But anyways, we'll start with some basics and to explain what the sustainable landscape construction means. Sustainable Sites Initiative says this, that the purpose of sustainable landscape construction is to design, build and maintain the environment in such a way that we avoid, reduce, compensate or prevent the negative effects of construction. Then of course, well, I think this might be very familiar to you, but what we mean when we talk about landscape construction, what we meant in the project is of course all the building processes that take place outdoors between the buildings, and all the kind of phases and different layers of those works. And of course the sustainability from the perspective of sustainable development, particularly ecological sustainability is emphasized in landscape construction. That's because we intervene with the natural processes, the water cycle and the soil and the areas of vegetation, so to say all the key factors in terms of ecosystem services. So, and the aim should be that we are cherishing the vitality and the continuity of these processes. So these are the kind of starting points. And of course, well, this might be very kind of, well, we all know this, there's a global and national mega trends and problems that we kind of need to solve. They are all linked in many ways, and kind of a local change can affect the far-reaching consequences. And we have environmental issues and problems that are waiting to be solved. For me, of course, when you think how it is visible in the field of landscape architecture, these are the questions that our field and many other related fields have been working with for a long time. But then you can say maybe at the present times, there are a lot of concepts that are more widely maybe known and recognized than they were, that they were not had this kind of concepts or understanding, but nowadays they are more up to and a bigger audience know about these issues. Well, the building industry has a substantial effect on the environment. This is a bit of a older number, but from 2012, already then globally, the built environment caused almost half of the material extraction from the new products, and also 60% of all waste is a result of construction and demolition. And also the situation that we have, that the urbanization grows all the time. What is built on the land, it profoundly impacts the ecological systems. We can also look at this as a positive perspective. So the building industry has a significant role in changing this kind of developing the sustainable working policies and preventing the harmful and negative effects. So we are affecting a lot, but then we can also have the positive effect if we are changing our ways of doing things. I will just take one example from Europe and from Finland. Understanding of the concept of waste is changing. In here and the European Union directive, there is a meaning that the waste means any substance or object that which the holder discards or intends or is required to discard. And we have a waste hierarchy. You have to first you have to prevent producing the waste. Of course, you have to then, the second is to prepare for reuse. Then you have to think about the recycling, and then maybe use it in another way. And the last one is this disposal. And we've had these aims at the moment already. By the end of this year, the aim is to reuse 70% of all waste as a material. Here are some numbers from Finland from a couple of years ago. It was along that we had the level of 25%, but in year 2017 it was coming up already to 58%, and I'm not sure that if we are getting to the level of 70%, but for us, the building industry produces 50 million tons of waste, and most of it is mineral substance, so mainly mineral soils. So how to gain this objective of 70% reuse of materials? We have in Finland, we have these different programs and also some legislation that tries to support the use of waste in earthworks and ground structures. I'm not going to translate this Mara what it means, but it's a regulation that reduces the need for environmental permission on ground construction and permits the use of recycled material in certain situations. And also there's a new regulation coming up concerning excavated soils and materials, which is, well, it's not done already yet, but it's coming. But then we were kind of, the project that we started, we thought that we need to address this question in the field of landscape industries. And I'm talking about the field as a whole. We felt that we are kind of missing clear instructions and guidelines how to achieve sustainable working methods in our own field of work. And this operating model has considered what are the objectives for sustainable development in landscape sector and how they can be achieved. And here we have then developed this to apply to the entire operating process of the landscape sector. It means like the ordering, meaning the clients, municipalities, and maybe building companies, and then the designers, also constructing, so landscapers, and then also maintaining the green areas. And also it should affect on the material and product companies. Just to talk a bit about the background, as I said, there was a kind of a question in the field that we needed to answer. We have an association that was mentioned before, the Finnish Association of Landscape Industries. It's an umbrella organization that actually gathers all the actors of the field. So we have landscape architects there we have the landscapers, we have the nurseries, for example. So in my understanding, it's quite exceptional actually in European level that we have so many associations under one umbrella. And I think that was one thing that made this project special, that it was possible to kind of cover all the aspects and to participate all the parties of a building process. We started with the seminar. It was actually 2015, and it was a seminar that kind of gathered the topical questions from the field at that time that we thought that we need to solve somehow, and then the question of the sustainable solutions in our field came up, and also the emphasis of the practical level. We found that there was a need for this kind of operating principles of some sort. We started as a working group, and then it developed to a 3-year project. I was leading the work. We got some support from some foundations. We had a couple of persons with me, Hanna and Hanna-Maria, working with me, professionals, and then Seppo Närhi was the representative of the Association of Landscape Industries. And how we worked was mostly workshops. We had several workshops. I guess we kind of gathered around 300 professionals all together to different workshops during the time. And we were completing the project around 2018, actually opened the website for the project. And after that, we have continued by introducing these kind of practical guidelines for working life. So it's kind of an ongoing process. It's not actually ended in a way, but we opened the website in 2018. Oh, what is happening here? Okay. The operating model is actually based on some international guidelines and quality models. And one of the main material that we used was the assessment and certification system called Sustainable Sites Initiative, which is from the US. I guess it might be familiar for you, but we also collected, we have kind of used European Green City and Green Flag and Green Label guidelines, as well as some other relevant literature and material. And one of the main goals was to kind of collect all the information and all the criteria that is there already. And then we wanted to adapt this criteria to Finnish conditions. Of course, it has to be site specific in that way that we have certain issues that are more important to our country. We started actually with the study of the current process to find the problems and barriers kind of that we face. And this study was based mostly to interviews and then interviews of central professionals in the field. And from this study, we found out, maybe partly obvious, that of course all the parties in the building process have their own roles, and the main operator promoting the sustainable solutions is the orderer of the project. So it's the client, quite often the municipalities or building companies. They actually decide the budget. The key aspect for making this kind of operating model more common is that the customer who orders the project commits to, and then further commits all parties of the process to the defined objectives of the program. Without the right state of mind and the resources given by the ordering party, the projects cannot fully be implemented in a sustainable way. If this criteria has not been defined at the start of the project, it will not be fulfilled in the following stages either. So that's the main kind of thing that the order is a very central role. But of course, in addition, the designers, they make a quite kind of choices in the design process. It has impacts what the designer have decisions that have made. They have impact on materials and also the implementation and the level of maintenance. So there is a major role defining the sustainable decisions or solutions also. At the stage of the construction and also management or maintenance phase, the choice of implementation techniques, the machinery, and the way of supplying materials and products, and the kind of a know-how of, for example, maintenance have all central effects to the results and its level of sustainability. What we also found, it was it was very important to think how to adopt the operating model. It requires first of all in a change of attitude and kind of rethinking of practices. At least in Finland, we have, I think maybe in many other countries also, there are kind of customary practices that has been there for many, many years. And there are people who just think that, okay, this is the way we have always done it, so we will do it in the future. But that's one of the reasons we wanted to have these workshops, that we wanted to have people there to understand the meaning of this work, and also to somehow take it to their own and kind of understand and be aware of the objectives that have been placed. We also think that this kind of continuous updating of knowledge is necessary, and also kind of openly sharing this information. For example, this model is open, it's free, it's not, I mean, it's free for everybody from the website to look at. And then, of course, cooperation and participating all the actors as widely as possible. It's kind of the promoting of the whole thinking. So to get people involved. Now I will just shortly go through the themes. So this model actually presents in 5 different themes. The first concentrate on the site-specific conditions, so water and soil and vegetation, and the third one is about the use of raw ingredients, the material and products, and the 2 last concentrate on well-being of the environment and also the people. So just to see or kind of give the whole picture of the content of the projects, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see that the first part kind of contains the general operating principles, and then these 5 themes. And as an attachment, actually, we went through the current legislation and quality requirements that we have, and kind of studied the gaps and the needs for changes. So my idea is now to go through the themes and just, now this is not working anywhere. Okay, it's going up and down. So all the themes contain this, that there's a main objectives, and then there's like operating principles and actions for all the phases and different parties of the process. The first theme is the operating principles for the fostering of the water conditions. So it is about the site. Idea is to encourage to safeguard the aquatic ecosystem services of the site, and also they guide to locate construction in such a way, for example, that the ecological operations of flood areas and the operations of sensitive aquatic ecosystems are safeguarded. They also provide guidelines for restoration of aquatic ecosystems and the management of stormwaters. Also, there is an objective of reduction of domestic water consumption. There are all the operating principles. And then I could give you some examples, maybe because we in this project, we also collected, and also after it was finished, we also kind of promote all the municipalities, companies we have opened the website so they can suggest a project that has maybe been implemented following the model or fulfilling maybe partly the criteria. So here are some projects just very shortly. This is one stormwater wetland in Helsinki, and this is a kind of a triangle, a small park where it's situated a bit north from Helsinki city center. And this wetland is actually cleaning and retaining a lot of the stormwaters from a big built area north from the park, and before it's led to the Tönölahti Bay, which is on the southern side of this park. It's also been, because it was situated on an old historical park, of course, it needs to take into account the cultural history and the landscape values of the site. Then the theme 2, this is concerning soil and vegetation, and then promoting the retention of the healthy and soil and vegetation and the restoration and management of soil. There's also like guidance provided in the protection of valuable and original vegetation, also the use of vegetation suitable for the site, and then management of invasive species. And in addition, there is also used to promote the retention and increase of biomass, so material of living origin. And here are the principles, and with the site-specific operating principles, meaning the first and the second themes, the meaning of mapping of the existing circumstances on the site, and the design and construction and maintenance kind of accordingly is emphasized. Defining different protective zones maybe, and diminishing harms and distraction requires setting of new priorities also during construction and maintenance phases. The central actions are pre-design of the construction site, for example, and the protection of the site. And also in addition, developing the maintenance plan according the sustainable solutions and through identifying the values and the features of the site. The construction and maintenance aim to nature-based solutions, and through that to increase biodiversity and the natural habitats. Here is a project, Tikkurila River Park. It's actually a project that started with the invitational competition, and the winner of that competition was Loki Landscape Architects, entry called Oasis. And this is built on an idea kind of emphasizing the site values and using the existing features of vegetation and water as a starting point of creating kind of a new outdoor living space for the residents of a busy urban center. Vantaa is the city very next to Helsinki and in the capital area of Helsinki. There was, you can maybe see the main picture was also in the beginning of this lecture. They were opening kind of embankment of the river and restoring the natural and flow of the river. And it's for now one of the changes that has been already made. There is also several features in this park, river park, and one of them is this Ovik area that includes a park with a playground. And I just took this because of there's like two things here. One is partly about the water. There's like a huge stormwater pipe actually coming from the center, from that collects like waters from stormwaters from 25 hectares of area close by, and it's taken to this park. And there is under the kind of viewing deck of this park, there is a sand bio coal filter that holds and cleans the water, and there will be some information kind of signs coming to this shore to explain about it. And then there's this playground, which is mostly, the idea is also to kind of use the water, and then they're pumping water up and the children can play with that. But you can see that the building site was very demanding, and despite these heavy groundworks that were done, one of the tasks was to keep the existing trees, and I think they kind of succeeded quite well with that. There you can also see the water feature in the playground. Then to the third theme, it's operating principle for the production, use, and recycling of raw ingredients and materials and products. This is kind of, it's used to encourage material efficiency, the responsible use of raw ingredients, and it's supporting ecologically sustainable materials and safely in production. And also there is the idea of limitation and sorting of waste produced in construction, and also recycling and reuse of materials. Also, there is an idea that you should prefer local producers and manufacturers and materials. These principles concern especially kind of setting target levels compared to the normal level, for example, with reducing emissions and energy use, water use, or the amount of waste. And then also informing about the objectives So that if there's a target levels that you're kind of sharing to all collaborators and actors, and supporting the sustainable working culture, you can set like new target levels to all parties of the process. Also those who actually haven't been selected to the project, but might want to be selected in the future. Central principles is also that the collaborators with sustainable production values and documented environmental aspects are preferred. And also the meaning of local actors, safety, healthiness, and justice and equality in the production also emphasized. Here there's just shortly about the case of Helsinki city. In Helsinki, there's since year 2014, there has been actually a kind of a special post of a coordinator who is coordinating the land masses and the spoils in the area. The coordinator is kind of following the question of land and soil masses at the city level, and the target is to use and recycle all land masses within the city. And you can see there's like the amount of land that has been recycled and also the money that has been saved. There's a couple of projects. One of them, this is a very first one actually, that was a landfill. I think they started with this one already like before 2010. And this is an old waste tip in the eastern part of Helsinki. It kind of received all the land materials and the surface topsoil from all areas of Helsinki where excavating was needed. And this 40 hectares area is nowadays very popular kind of a lookout site and collection of many kind of biotopes. If you are in Helsinki area, you should visit. It's quite interesting. Then there's another project, this Allakivy Park, which is also located in the eastern Helsinki area. This is also a former waste tip of Myllypuro, which was started already in 1950s until 1960s. And this park is a result of this Helsinki recycling of land project for sure. It has been built on the criteria of ecological sustainability and follows this Helsinki resource-wise strategy. Just some pictures for you to see. In the 70s, the area, for some reason, they had built houses and housing on top of this old landfill. And then there was like blocks of flats, and these houses were knocked down in 2001 when they found out there is like environmental pollution that was kind of observed at the area in 1998. And then they had a remediation of this polluted ground that was finished in 2010. But this Allakivy Park has been built totally with recycled land and soil, and the earthwork has done with kind of a sludge soil coming from new harbor that was dug very close by. And also the recycled soil from recycled topsoil of forest land. That's something, and using the seed bank of the soil is quite common nowadays with the park projects. There's some figures you can see. Just take a sip of water. Still, you can read the figures. How kind of what kind of things were gained. And I think this is the kind of the most important argument that we can have when we change the way of thinking. Actually, it's really kind of if you think about the budgets and the economical side, there is a lot of gains in this way of working. Then there's a theme 4, which is concerning energy saving, air quality and environmental protection, that focuses on the reduction of different emissions, and the aim is to reduce greenhouse gases, the loss of habitats, and the negative effects on human organism health. These principles are connected mostly with optimizing the actions and using the alternative energy resources and production, and also adopting more environmentally friendly ways of operating. This is one, just like, for example, the use of new electric machinery and devices that now have been started to come to the market quite a lot. But also the kind of decisions of design and concerning the maintenance. No need to cut the lawn all over. For example, the picture on the left is from Oslo Park, where most of the sides of the lawn has been left uncut and to be developed as to a meadow. Then there's the 15, the last one. This is the principles concerning the promotion of health and well-being. They are mainly related to social sustainability, are used to support fostering of the values of cultural environments, the accessibility, safety, and comfort of green areas, and also the equal opportunities to all users. These principles, they relate to identifying the needs and solutions, then also participating local communities and specialists, and developing new methods of working. Here in Finland, quite kind of popular thing nowadays is city gardening. Well, I don't know, we don't have such a kind of urban cities, but still there is the green areas, they play an important role in mental recovery, and also place for physical activities that promote health. Of course, in these times that we've had during the late half year, a bit more, we have seen how important the green areas are. Of course, these locations are also supporting this kind of social interactions and strengthening the sense of community. So, and also by supporting the local economy, for example, by using local labor and materials, these local communities and their operations are developed. Okay, this slide is already finished, but I just want to have it as a, that I remember to say that we really did this kind of operating, going through this operating principles. We also went through the legislation and like quality requirements, and studied the gaps and needs for changes. We have a website, unfortunately in Finnish. I think we have only one document in English. But what we then, no, I don't know why this is not always showing the things, but we made this kind of, there's a kind of a report. You could say it's more maybe a manuscript for the web page content, but we also then afterwards started to make this kind of a very simple lists for, this is for like for a client, what kind of rules or kind of a general level thoughts that should be taken into account. We made that one also for a designer, what kind of major things and kind of general level things to be thought if you want to have a project with a sustainable thinking. It's also done for the landscapers and for the management. I'm sorry, this is in Finnish, I will just skip this. And then we also made this kind of a, you could say, kind of checklists and instructions, that kind of very practical things to be used on the site. And then also like a list of rules for everybody in the field who are working with the landscape field. Yeah, that was all. A lot of words. But well, I'm ready to answer some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Emilia, for such an inspiring lecture and getting to know something that general landscape architects are not that excited about,
Yeah,
which is the construction of things. While I will allow people to formulate their questions, and I think I have one to open up the discussion. While you went through all of these, and since it was quite an extensive and thorough process, and looking back now at where we are, how do you think that landscape practices have reacted to these, and are they adopting these practices, and how is the landscape construction industry also looking at all these operational model? Are they on board, or are you feeling there is some skepticism or hesitation around these?
Well, I think both. That, as I said, that there is like skepticism and hesitation because there are kind of ways of working that have been there for such a long time that it's kind of hard to change your ways of doing and thinking. But then I can also see another point of view, which is mostly coming from the economic thinking, that they see that you can actually really save a lot. I feel that the municipalities and the cities are very interested about this work also. And I know that, for example, in Tampere area, they are kind of developing this model for themselves to make like more maybe detailed rules for their own when they are kind of ordering work of design or then construction, that they are making more precise rules which are kind of based on this model. And I'm very happy for that, because in this work, it was a huge project for such a kind of a small group to handle. And then, of course, there was a lot of things that I felt that were staying in a too general level. But it was very important to have that level somehow put together in a one kind of a report or people to. So at least I feel that in Finland, people are very interested about this. And I think the reason is that we have this umbrella organization who is kind of really like letting people know about it. It has been like at least 2 years. It has been a very central topic in our seminars. But I guess that maybe the kind of a problem, or the kind of something that we should do better, is to somehow catch the building companies. I mean, that are not the landscapers, because they kind of know already, but we have the ones who are ordering the work from the landscapers, like the bigger companies. And for them, this kind of thinking is fairly new. So I'm talking about like infrastructure, building roads and so on. So like this hardscape kind of, yeah. So, but I feel, well, I will give the same lecture to ELCA, which is the European Association of Landscape Constructors, on Friday. And I really hope that, and I understood that they are very interested. Of course, you can say that there's a lot of companies who are interested to develop their ways of working, but then there are a lot of them that who are not, or kind of maybe don't have the energy of the interest. But I think the thing that you can gain something economically is actually the thing that is changing.
It's a good argument.
The argument should be economical, yeah.
And have you seen a change in the practice of landscape architecture in Finland? Are practices adopting the operating module more and more?
Yeah, I think more and more. Of course, I can see that kind of, if I'm thinking about landscape architects and designers, this is something that we base our work in, is kind of ecological and ethical and social sustainability. They are so kind of a core, I don't know the word in English now, but then, I mean, they're kind of very important values for us. So for us, I think this is not a new thing, of course, but we can use it. And I think when the municipalities or the cities adopt this system, it's much easier to make a design for them, which is following the principles. Right. You don't have to kind of be the one who's telling them that, come on, you should do it this way, but they already know, and there's a lot of pressure, of course, politically now, and we have a new legislation for the stormwater management, for example. So it's already in the law that you have to use these nature-based solutions like as a first choice. That so we are trying to achieve that this could go to the like legal level, and of course then it will work more kind of going down. So that's one of our goals has been, and that's why we went through the legislation that is there at the moment, and we tried to find the gaps that or kind of problems. And we already knew from the interviews of the operators that there are like some very, very stupid like ways of doing things just because the legislation is actually preventing us of doing it in a wise way.
Right.
So we tried to kind of go around this topic in a different levels. But it's a very slow process, of course.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially when you include politics in legislation.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so open the floor to our participants. If there is any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly to Emilia, or if you feel a little more in the shy side, you can also type your question and we can read it. Anyone?
If there's silence, I would like to maybe ask about the situation, like for example in New Zealand, or is this kind of a topic somehow, present on the discussion, or is it just?
Yeah.
Well,
I can see here a couple of people that may be very interested to answer that question. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Steve. Do you want? I know that you are a little more involved on these in New Zealand. Do you want to answer Emilia's question?
Yeah, I was going to send a query, and that New Zealand has the Green Building Council that focuses on the efficiencies of buildings, and it's more for the architects. There is some environmental processes included in the way of assessing the energy efficiency of buildings, but it doesn't really address landscape very much. There is some water processes, a bit of land use, whether it's taking up a green space or whether it's a brownfields site, but the landscape side of it is pretty well deficient, and we haven't really looked at, although there are ways of incorporating sustainable water processes and the likes, we don't have a coordinated industry sort of group that is looking into that, and that's something that perhaps the Institute of Landscape Architects here, combining with the Landscape Industries group, could look at, so developing something, because we don't have that focus on ours. It's more for Green Star of levels for the buildings as such. So I found it really useful as the way you process that you went through, and incorporating all those various people who are involved in the landscape design and construction process, and your point that it involves the person, the individual who is commissioning the work, ensuring that they're involved in the process and committed to it, so that all parties are have the same goals. So I wondered whether, do you have architects in Finland who are involved and integrated in your process, or are they a separate one as well?
Yeah, architects were not a part of this process, but we have very close connections to the field, and I know that we had a bit of a similar situation that you had like before this project, that it was mostly all the kind of assessments criteria, or kind of this kind of operating models were mostly concentrating on architecture and houses and buildings, and about this kind of energy efficient questions. We did not take the architects to this, and I think it would be maybe a good idea to have them, but they were not part of this kind of the association that started this project. But we are now, I know that there is like in the Ministry of Environment, they're developing like one model also that actually takes this somehow partly inside of their new model, and there is buildings are kind of, and then also like land use planning is kind of also taken, so there is like more larger scale and coming down to the city scale and so on. So, but for me, I feel that quite often these kind of models, as I thought also sustainable sites was very good, like a framework for us. There was a lot of like criteria and also content that we kind of used, but I feel that they always a bit left on the general level, and I feel that we also a bit were left on the general level, but I'm very happy to see that now some cities are, as I mentioned, are kind of developing this further, and our idea is that we can then share the information, that when we get more like best practices type of sharing it on the website. But yeah, well, we didn't have the architects association inside the project, but I know that there are some who have kind of heard about it and are interested, and possibly we should talk more about it for them too.
Yes, I wonder whether incorporating urban design and urban planners, that because they start that process of sort of development, and broadening the group to include those types of people would be of use.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve, for stepping in, and thank you, Emilia. Do we have any other questions from our participants? Okay, there's some quietness instead. Perhaps we're going to stay here, Emilia, and I would like to thank you for connecting all the way from Finland and to share your time and your knowledge with us. It's very interesting to see, the other side of things, what happens beyond design and how can we make our projects far more sustainable. And I think it's a long process, but I think it's all worth it, and hopefully more countries can adopt a similar strategy as Finland has. Oh, yeah, I was just seeing someone was asking about the recording of this lecture. So thank you for that. Thank you for connecting, and thank you for sharing this very interesting lecture. And I hope to see most of you for our last Thinkers and Doers of the year, which will be in 2 weeks from now. Meanwhile, I hope that you all stay sound and safe, and have a good day or a good evening, wherever you are based.
Okay, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Emilia.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was really good. Thanks.
Bye.